Joining me now is Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont. His state is approaching 7,000 cases and reported, unfortunately, 206 deaths so far. Governor, good to have you with us back on this program. How are your hospitals doing so far? Do they have the equipment, space, and staff they're expected to need?
Eamon, good morning. And that's the exact right question. As the previous doctor said, hospitalizations is probably the best metric we can use. Obviously, infections reflect testing and other criteria that may not be as relevant. And so far, our hospitalizations are not flattening, but at least the line is linear. It's not going up exponentially. And that is giving our hospitals a little more time. That's allowing them to build up some capacity. And so far, they're bending, but they're not breaking.
I'm sure you've been watching those numbers from New York, given your proximity. What do you see as the takeaways for your state? I'm curious to get your thoughts as whether or not your state should try and restrict the movement of either people going into Connecticut or people coming out of Connecticut. We obviously live in the tri-state area. The movement between Connecticut, New Jersey, New York is impossible to ignore. But are we getting to a point where we should consider these types of restrictions?
Well, look, I have talked to Governor Cuomo about this at some length. You know, first of all, remember Metro North, which is probably the biggest transportation back and forth. Ridership is down 95%. And a lot of those 5% left have to go. They're first responders and the such. We have said now no short-term rentals. We have said no hotel rooms can go out unless it's for first responders. So we're doing everything we can to maximize the stay-at-home order for New Yorkers as well as Connecticut.
President Trump said that he spoke to governors yesterday and said everyone was happy with the federal government's response. A, were you on that call? And B, are you getting everything you need from the federal government? Would you say that you're happy with the federal government's response, as President Trump said?
Look, nobody would say they're happy. Nobody would say they've gotten what they need, or certainly not everything they think they need. The feds were a little slow off the draw, but they are catching up. And that's the good news. The communication back and forth has been constructive. FEMA and the Army Corps of Engineers are helpful. I would just strongly urge them, put together your purchasing team and go out and buy the vents on the world market. Don't leave that up to the state of Connecticut purchasing department.
You've spoken about wanting to bring antibody testing to Connecticut if and when availability expands. Talk to us a little bit about that. What are you actively pursuing on that front? What are you doing?
What we want to do is make sure that we have the antibody testing that tells us who can get back into the workplace, who has built up an immunity to COVID. And that's what the antibody testing would do. We'd be focusing on the younger workers, those that are most likely to not suffer complications. And if we can roll that out on a broad-based, systematic way over the course of the next month or two, we'll know who can get back to work safely.
Let me get your thoughts on the economic front of this crisis right now, sir. Your state reportedly facing 20 times the number of unemployment claims in the last 2 weeks that it saw in the last recession. Talk to us a little bit about what your state is doing to try and address, the most dire financial needs of the people there.
I come out of the technology world, and this says something about the state government and government in general. Upgrading your IT systems was never a big priority. It wasn't a big vote winner for you. So our Department of Labor, and I hear that from governors across the country, have 40-year-old COBOL systems. They had capacity to maybe cover twice the normal load of unemployment claims. And as you point out, we're 20 times that load. So we've crashed a couple of times. We've got COBOL engineers coming in, doing every type of a workaround we can right now. And I hear that from the federal government and state governments as well. We're going to get that workaround, and we're going to get that checks out to people as soon as we can. And they are retroactive. I think that's true nationally. So people aren't losing out on their money, but we're trying to speed up getting them their money.
Governor, let me ask you finally really quickly about the elections and primaries taking place across the country, but specifically in your state. You've already postponed your primary to June 2nd. Are you considering other changes to the election, maybe even pushing it further out or changing the whole thing to vote by mail?
I certainly lean towards the latter. We can push it out till mid-June or late June, but we're still going to be in the throes. I'm still going to have some form of a stay-at-home order. It's just contradictory to say, leave your home and go vote. So we have some constitutional issues, but I'm pushing like heck. Like with my regional governors, we ought to have easier voting by mail. I think we should do that, especially for this next election coming up. But I don't want to cancel a primary either.
Thank you for checking out our YouTube channel. Why don't you subscribe? It's really easy. Just click on that button down there. And for more news from MSNBC, click on any of these videos here for the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more videos from MSNBC with our newsletters. Head over to msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up.